What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside Arkansas Football. Curtis Wilkerson, joined by Andrew Ellis for a little live stream Razorback football talk tonight. And today's show is presented by our friends at BetSaracen. It's Arkansas's #1 sports betting app. Just download on your iPhone or Android or go to BetSaracen.com. BetSaracen, proud sponsor of us here at Inside Arkansas. Andrew, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it's very light outside. And that's one thing I miscalculated when I scheduled this for 6 p.m. and I was like, hey, let's do it at 6 p.m. It doesn't feel like nighttime, but it is nighttime. It's Inside Arkansas after dark still, even though it's very bright outside. I'm in the minority. I like when it gets dark early. I'm looking forward to that time change that's coming in, whatever, October, November.
Me too. Yeah, I definitely am. It's going to take some getting used to, but that's when it really signals that it's football season. It's also still taking me a little bit of getting used to for this intro without Sam Pittman's things of that nature. It just doesn't feel quite right, but we're getting there. Okay, we're gonna adapt. It's gonna be all right. People are wondering probably why the hell are these guys doing a Thursday random stream here? Well, let us explain. Game week is next week. Like, the season is here. We want to start getting into our football season routine, which is going to feature a lot of things. I mean, we're going to have our EA Sports video game live streams. A lot of times that'll take place on Thursday night. So you need to get used to us being live at these times. We're going to have live pregame shows. We're going to have our bold predictions, our challenges for each opponent like we did last year. We're going to have our post-game live reaction show immediately following the end of every game. We're going to have our post-game accountability session where everything we say pregame, we run it back afterwards, and me and Andrew hold ourselves accountable. And this year, we're going to hold you guys accountable for the things that you say. And there's the post-game report card. What I'm saying here is Inside Arkansas Football is going to the moon, and we need everybody to be on the same page before game week.
It's definitely very underrated, Curtis. The amount of football content that you and I have produced over the years and that we're about to produce here this football season, even while you're delivering your own child, while you're making these big moves in your life, we're still going to be doing a lot of football content. For two guys that claim to be basketball and baseball guys, we sure have covered a lot of football, and we don't really advertise that. We're very humble guys that don't like to talk about our many accomplishments, and we don't like to talk about the valuable experience and great work ethic that we have. All these things, we don't talk about this. But you and I have done a lot of football content together over the years, and I'm happy to do it again this season, man. I'm really looking forward to it amid a crazy time in your life individually.
As John Calipari would say, we're grinders, man. It's just the way that it is around here. There's a lot going on, and we just want everybody to know what's coming and when. Today, what we're going to be doing here, as you guys can probably see from the little graphic there, we're just going to hit you with kind of our post-camp stock report on each position group, just based on how we felt going into camp, how we feel now that camp is broken and they're getting ready to go into game preparations. We're going to talk about our projected 2 deep, try to get out ahead of the U of A's official drop on Monday and see how close we can get to that, or what it's going to actually be on Saturdays when they take the field. So we're excited. We're looking forward to it. Jump in here, hit us with your questions. I already see people in the chat. That's good. We'll get to that at the end. Where should we start? Andrew, you tell me. Offense first, defense first, or do we talk about the elephant in the room before we get too deep ingrained in Arkansas Razorback football and talk about this SEC schedule?
Well, let's definitely talk about the SEC schedule for sure. We got to talk. I mean, listen, it's a monumental announcement that we've been waiting on forever. It's weird. This happens a lot where we talk about something on Inside Arkansas Live and then huge news breaks right afterwards. And sometimes we even allude to the news on Inside Arkansas Live. But this is where you have a unique opportunity where they announced the 9-game SEC schedule about an hour after we get done with Inside Arkansas Live. And now apparently we're being forced to play good teams every year. Curtis, what the hell is that?
Yeah, this is unbelievable, man. I'm blown away. Kurt Signetti, he's in shambles. He's really going through it right now. But yeah, you're right. We touched on Inside Arkansas Live earlier today, but we got the details just a little bit before we started streaming here, which are very interesting. Let me pull up the graphic here. That way we can kind of roll through it a bit. But the SEC, it is official. They are going to a 9-game conference schedule beginning in 2026. So that's next year. They're going to continue with the single standings, the non-divisional structure. So there is no East-West. If you guys were hoping for that to happen, well, it's not. Each school, they're going to play 3 annual opponents focused on maintaining many traditional rivalries. Rivalries, that's a kind of a blurred line with Arkansas, so we'll see exactly what that means. Each team's remaining 6 games will rotate among the remaining conference schools, and each team will face every other SEC program at least once every 2 years and every opponent home and away in every 4 years. So they're trying to add a little bit more balance to the schedule there. The other thing that's not included in this graphic that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit as well is, in addition to adding an SEC game to the schedule and having 9, SEC teams are still going to be required to schedule one heavy hitter in the out of conference, whether it's Big 10, Big 12, an ACC school, or Notre Dame. So that gives you 10 big time games that you're going to be playing every single year moving forward if you're the Arkansas Razorbacks or anybody else in the SEC.
Listen, everyone's immediate reaction seems to be, holy cow, this is going to be really hard. we now have an extra SEC game. We don't have as many gimmies. We might not get the Alabama A&Ms in the future. You might not get to take that awesome road trip to Tulsa in 2027. A lot of people corrected me on Twitter about that. It's 2027. Sorry. But no,
they come to our crib this coming year, next year. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You got to come see us first, and then maybe we'll cancel on that return trip. But anyways, I think people are very worried about how much harder it's going to be. And listen, perfectly normal. Like it is going to be harder. The difference between 5-7 and 6-6 is going to be really it's going to come down to an extra conference game every year. So there's a little bit more stakes, but I do think as the playoff continues to expand, this is the SEC positioning themselves to 100% without a debate be that number 1 power conference. They're going to have all the metrics on their side. We're not in the time yet of true bracketology when you get to a legit 32, 64 team bracket. But you touched on that, how when they're announcing that they're going to do strength of schedule and strength of record, and they're going to be looking at all these metrics. I think it's smart for the SEC to go ahead and get in front of this, start loading up these schedules, having marquee games, and ultimately, if you're a fan of the sport of college football, this is going to be awesome. I understand you're maybe worried about from the Arkansas context, or maybe worried about your team, but just as the sports product and as a just fun thing for all of us to watch every Saturday, I think this is good. It'll be fun, and it's going to be very competitive for sure.
Yeah, that it definitely is. So next season, Arkansas will have 9 SEC games. So the other one added here, plus the trip to Utah. That'll be their other power conference game. And then, and you alluded to it a little bit there, they're basically going to keep 2 and cut 1 of North Alabama, Memphis, and Tulsa. In my opinion, it can't be Memphis. You're going there this year, you got to get the home game next year in return. So do you keep Tulsa, who you're scheduled to play on the road the following year, by the way, or North Alabama, who I believe they just added to the schedule recently? I think it was Missouri State or something. And they wound up having to do North Alabama instead. But that's also clearly the easiest game. I feel like they're probably going to cut North Alabama, but I don't know. Maybe if they can get out of the deal with Tulsa, they're probably going to have to pay a fine to do it because you got that other game attached, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
That's why I think they're going to end up cutting the North Alabama game, is because, again, you would be, again, that's also, by the way, that's a bye game, the North Alabama game. So it's maybe you can save yourself some money and then use that to do whatever. I don't know. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Another thing with the schedule thing, who are Arkansas's 3 permanent opponents going to be? We all going to have our theories. We all have our wish list. That's going to be interesting when we finally get some more details on the criteria for that, what that's going to look like. But there's going to be a lot of fun games on the horizon. That's what we do know.
Yeah, if they're talking about maintaining traditional rivalries, does that mean we just keep the trophy games?
Got to. I mean, the battle line's got to be up for grabs. The beautiful Southwest Classic trophy that we've all come to know and love so much over the years because it's been around Fayetteville so much. The boot, the best trophy in college football. I don't know if Arkansas and LSU are going to be permanent opponents, though.
Be crazy. It'd be a shame. Well, you better win that thing this year, and then you can just keep it
forever.
As long as you need
Although
to.
But the good thing is you can't duck the smoke. You got to play every SEC team every 2 years, so you can't really keep it.
This is very true. John Calipari's the GOAT says, "Why the hell are we going to Tulsa?"
It's a great
fantastic question. Dylan wants to play Kentucky in football every year, easy win and get bragging rights. Well, you'll play them every couple years, apparently, the way this is going to look. So you're going to get.
I was just going to say, Arkansas has not had a ton of football success over Kentucky over the years, man. I don't know if that's true.
They really haven't. And people are always like, well, why can't we play Vandy? That didn't go the last time they played, that didn't go particularly well, did it? So I don't know, but it will be cool just to see some different teams. I like the idea, not even because they suck, but seeing Vanderbilt and Kentucky or South Carolina more often than we normally do. Just like I would like to see Georgia a little bit more frequently.
Yeah.
I would like to see Florida a little bit more frequently than they have. So I think it's going to be cool. I like it. I'm down for it. I'm not scared of it, but I'm also not the guy who's getting paid however many millions of dollars to win enough games to satisfy a fan base when that number is going to be more difficult to get to now than it was like 5 hours ago. So there you have it.
No softies, bangers only, man.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else you want to touch on that before we move on to the reason that we're actually here today?
No, I was just thinking, Curtis. I was like, dude, there's not a chance in hell we're under an hour on this thing. Not a chance in hell.
No. You know how it is when we get together. It's just one of those things, man. But we will move on. We'll move ahead. We'll proceed. Okay, folks. So here's what we're gonna do. Like we said, kind of a position by position breakdown with this team. We got some awesome graphics that we're gonna pull up, on and off here and there from time to time from intern Presley. We appreciate her for putting these things together. But we're gonna talk about how we feel about every position group. Kind of give our thoughts on the two deep and, some battles there. And then we'll get to your questions at the end, or if we see them while we're talking about this stuff, we'll talk about that too. You want to start with offense or defense?
I think we got to start with offense because there's going to be more good news to share, more sunshine pumping and more happiness that we're going to share. I think we feel better about the offense. That's not a secret. And so we'll kind of soften everyone up, maybe get their guard down before we break their hearts with the defense.
Okay. I think that that probably sounds fair enough there. So let's just make this easy. We'll start with quarterback for the offense here with the Razorbacks. And I don't know about you, like we do these stock analysis. Sometimes you guys will catch us like on bye weeks when we'll do like midterm grades and we try to attach like where we think the stock is for each position. So it might be trending up, it might be trending down, it might be volatile and nasty, or it might be steady. And steady is where I kind of landed here on the quarterback position based on what we've seen. I feel confident in what Arkansas has in Tailon Green, and I feel at least as confident as I did in Malachi Singleton last year, which I just said his name for a reason, Andrew, as I do KJ Jackson going into this year, the backup quarterback position. What about you? Like, anything happened here that's got you feeling better or worse than you thought you would going into camp?
No, and I do want to clarify, though, that I felt good about Arkansas's quarterback position. I don't know if this is breaking news or not, but I think Tailon Green is a fine quarterback, and I think there's a lot they can build on from last year with him, especially with it being year two in Bobby Petrino's offense. I've always been a huge believer in KJ Jackson. Obviously, he doesn't have a ton of game experience under his belt, although his game experience against UAPB went swimmingly. So honestly, he's on pace for a tremendous career. But I have always liked his skill set. Think he seems to be a guy trending in the right direction when we hear from BP. So I felt very good about the quarterback position going into fall camp. So when I say it's steady, it really isn't a bad thing because I felt good about it and I still continue to feel very good about it. I don't know if we've heard anything. I don't know what we could hear in fall camp that would really change our big picture view on it. To be fair, though, by all indications, Tailon Green has absolutely cooked the second team defense and the first team defense in the scrimmages. He's performed very well. And I think for a guy that's a senior, had a ton of experience under his belt, year two of the offense, he probably should be doing that, but credit to him, he's been doing it. So again, I feel pretty steady about it. My steady with the quarterback position is very different than my steady at maybe some other positions that we're going to discuss where they haven't moved the needle much and it's from a much lower spot than quarterback. Again, I felt good about quarterback coming into fall camp. I remain feeling pretty good about quarterback going into the season opener next week.
For sure. And I'd like to reserve the right to when we do this again during the bye week or whatever to potentially be trending up at the quarterback position because I like everything that I've heard about Tailon in terms of better understanding of the offense or maybe being better able to read some things with the defense. And, like we remember that 91-yard touchdown run for Mike Washington where him and Kittler got on the same page about some stuff. That's great. I like the talk about his mechanics becoming more consistent with the throwing motion. I just want to see the decision-making carry over to games when somebody's breathing down your neck about to sack you or you got to abandon ship and get out of the pocket. What is that going to look like? He hasn't had to do any of that, here in camp because they're not allowed to touch him and also because they couldn't get to him even if they wanted to. So that's part of it there. But I'm anxious to see what this looks like once we get, was it 5 games before they get a bye weekend?
So after Notre Dame? And then they get a bye week going into Tennessee. I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
I think the theme of this show, I guess, is trajectories, of Are you trending up or are you trending down? Because we know in sports, you never stay the same. Although that's what we're saying is happening with the quarterback position. You're never, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. Coaches say that all the time. I think that's kind of the thing. The thing to remember about Tailon Green and his trajectory. So let's go back to 2022 for a second. His first year as a starter at Boise State, you could argue might be the most efficient year of his career. He was 157 yards per game, so not a ton of yardage. 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 61.3% completions, 7.5 yards per attempt. And he had a lot of rushing. 10 rushing touchdowns. Right there, as a young player, you think, okay, there's something you can really build on. He kind of failed to do that his second year at Boise State. While they had a lot of turnover on offense, his numbers were down all across the board. Worst completion percentage, worst touchdown to interception ratio, fewer yards per game. His rushing totals were all down. And so now he's had a year, I would say, very similar to that first year he had, although his yardage at Arkansas, 242 passing yards per game. Completion percentage has gotten back over 60%. Like, now we're back at that spot we were at 2 years ago with Tailon Green, where it's like, okay, now can you build on this and look ahead to the future? Can he really take those strides? He failed to do it his first time at Boise State while there was a lot of turnover around him. He's now got a situation at Arkansas, a lot of turnover around him. The competition is going to be really good. It's kind of up to him now as a senior to really be that guy that we've always kind of seen flashes of and seen the capability of throughout his career.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm excited for what for year 2 of Tailon Green holds for this offense, and I'm also excited to see that dynamic with his legs. That's the thing about camp, man, is you hear about the quarterback throwing the football a lot, and that's kind of the area that he really needs to grow and improve, and we expect that he will to a degree there. But man, when he gets out in the open field, it just used to crack me up watching the angles that opposing defenses would take against Tailon Green, because he just glides, man. And sometimes he's the fastest dude out there on the field, and you think you got him, you think he's not going to get the corner, but he does. And he's got like this weird change of speed that he can do to get by people. I can't wait to watch him run. And I also can't wait to watch Arkansas's running backs run. Yeah. And this is very interesting to me because I think we settled on trending up for the second. I'll pull this graphic up here while we talk about it a little bit. Yeah, we
Spoilers,
did.
By the way, for the position groups that we haven't gotten to yet, but this is kind of how we feel overall.
Yeah, exactly. We'll provide a little context and talk about it there as we move forward. But I don't know about you, but like the season ended, and after they did the whole on again, off again with Braylon Russell, it just felt like, okay, they've got him back. They ran him 40 times in the bowl game. He's going to be the guy for better or worse. And then they went out and built this thing out, and it's like, oh, well, Rodney Hill's coming back. All right. Oh, cool. AJ Green. Okay. Mike Washington, this guy from New Mexico State. So it just struck me as like, okay, this is kind of going to be Braylon's world. And they got some competent guys who are going to be able to fill in behind him, but it's going to like be him and Tailon Green carrying this thing. And then Braylon has the weird spring. And then you just keep hearing more and more and more about Mike Washington. And now he's busting off 80-yard runs every time he touches the football on a scrimmage. And it's gone from, in my opinion, at least, Braylon Russell being the guy. And then you got some Jags there behind him who can get some carries and spell him, to now you've got Mike Washington, who is your guy. And you hope that it's a Batman and Robin type of duo there between him and Braylon Russell. And they're deeper. And the potential is there for this to be a more potent rushing attack than I even initially thought.
100%. And I think that's a fair assessment that it was kind of set up in the spring. I think the coaching staff at Arkansas went into it very prepared to have Braylon Russell be RB1 and just kind of bet on him. He had a nice freshman year. There's a lot you can build on there. It's not the craziest notion in the world, but it didn't seem like they went out and got a guy. Because again, Jaquindon Jackson was a guy they brought in to be number one. I'm not even 100% sure that's the case with Mike Washington, but you're right, man. As soon as he got on campus, we started hearing a ton about him in the spring, and it was like, okay, now we got like a real battle here. By the time we got to fall camp, the battle was kind of over because he had impressed his teammates so much in the summer. But 100%, going back to when they brought in Mike Washington, this was not a move that we were very excited about, because we thought there were some other guys they maybe were on board for. And you look at the production with Mike Washington in his career, had 625 yards and 7 touchdowns as a sophomore back at Buffalo. Essentially lost his job the next year. His production goes way down, cut in half. Now he transfers to New Mexico State, where he has career highs, a little over 700 yards, had 8 touchdowns, a really nice season, but he wasn't the RB1 there. So it wasn't really this guy that you're thinking, oh, he's about to come right in to an SEC school and be the lead back, no question about it. but it's definitely turning out to be that way. And that's why this whole position group, we just view it differently. And again, I've seen a lot of people saying, well, didn't they do this with Jaquan Jackson last year? Everybody was raving about him in fall camp last year. And my response to that, Curtis, would simply be, if he's as good as Jaquan Jackson, I will be very pleased. Because when he committed, I was like, dude, this is a substantial downgrade from Jaquan Jackson. I did not see that on paper. And Jaquan Jackson was a guy that was a starter at Utah, had a really good production, a career before he came to Arkansas. If Mike Washington is as reliable as Jaquan Jackson was when he was healthy, that is the important. Everyone's going to say, well, Jaquan Jackson got banged up. You're right. But when he was playing, he was like a top 5 running back in the SEC. So if Mike Washington is another Jaquan Jackson, I think Arkansas's got a pretty good situation at running back.
Yeah, I do too. I'm excited to see what this looks like. And I was also wondering about Mike Washington, just given some of his measurables, he seemed like a big, strong, physical type of back. And it's like, all right, well, that's kind of what you have in Braylon Russell. But it turns out Mike Washington is also one of the faster guys on the team. So this is going to be fun. I'm really, really interested to see what the like the breakdown of carries looks like. And it'll be easy enough to do it against Alabama A&M because they're going to blow those guys out. So everybody's going to get their touches. Everybody's going to get the pill. And they're going to feel good about their production at the end of the game. But as we move forward in the schedule, I really wonder how it all shakes out. If this winds up being where, you know, both of those guys are getting 15-ish touches a game, or if one of them emerges and it's like, all right, Mike Washington is really that dude. He's getting 20-plus carries and the others are just kind of filling in.
The sounds of it from Sam Pittman are that Mike Washington is kind of their guy. They even limited his reps the other day when he was in the scrimmage. Like he had a couple big runs, and they're like, "Hey, let's scale it back," because that's kind of who they view as their Ferrari. But I do think the Braylon Russell aspect of this is very fascinating because, again, he had a really nice freshman year. After his freshman year ended, we all could kind of see the vision of a guy who was, you know, it's not hard to talk us into him being a little bit better. I think this was kind of the wake-up call that maybe Braylon needed. And, of course, there's a lot going on with Braylon Russell in his situation. But he's a young kid. I mean, he's 19. He's a true sophomore. It's far too early to, like, mail it in on him. I think this Mike Washington situation has maybe forced him to realize, and that's something that Bobby Petrino talked about publicly. Hey, we kind of needed him to wake up and realize, like, hey, this is a competition. You have to show up and earn it. And a hungry dog runs faster. I like the idea of a 235-pound slimmed up, believe it or not, 235-pound slimmed up Braylon Russell, a little bit hungrier, a little bit more, you know, eager to prove that he can be that guy. I think competition brings out the best, and I think Mike Washington has proven to be a legitimate RB1 competitor, but he has the job pretty firmly, if you're asking me.
And, you know, he's also got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. You mentioned Jaquan Jackson comps. He's got to rush for 3 touchdowns and flirt with the Alabama A&M cheerleaders in the first game. Yeah, it's kind of the way that it works. So yeah, exactly. The precedent is there for you, young man. And, you know, we talk about Tailon Green and the strides that he's going to make and the potential for this rushing attack and everything, but we know that it's all predicated on the offensive line. And, you know, what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be improvement there in multiple areas, but it was really pass blocking where they struggled the most last year. And I know they made an emphasis on that. I'll let you go first because I went first on the last one here. With this offensive line, based on what you were thinking when we came into camp versus what we know now, are you higher? Are you lower? Are you just kind of staying put? Where are you at with the stock on this offensive line?
I would say I'm probably like, if you know, you're never truly at 0, I'm maybe at like 0.001, like slightly up, just because I do feel like they've gotten some answers. Like, we don't have any questions. There's not still a battle going on at any position. I mean, right tackle, you can make an argument, but we all kind of agree it's a Marion Harris there. I like that they have an answer. You know what I mean? Like, again, it's not a bad thing to have questions going into fall camp, but you better have answers for those questions. And I feel like they do have that. But Curtis, my issue is I just look at it on paper, and Arkansas last year, their weakness was that right side. And that was kind of like their Achilles heel. You had some veterans, you had some competent pieces, but that right side allowed a ton of pressure and was kind of their undoing. I'm not saying the right side is not going to be improved, but I see a redshirt freshman at right guard in Kobe Branham. I don't know if we can for sure guarantee he's going to be a, you know, above average SEC right guard. And a Marion Harris, I'm all in on a Marion Harris being better. I think he's a redshirt junior. He's a little bit more ready. I think tackle is also the better natural position for him. But he was one of the worst graded SEC offensive linemen in the entire conference last year. So there's a lot to prove there on that right side. Doesn't mean the group's going to be bad, but there is a lot to prove over there. I do like the stability that Corey Robinson brings. Corey Robinson, 1,648 snaps in his career. Carmona's right around that same thing. I think he has even a little bit more. That is a lot of game experience for both of those guys at high levels. I mean, Georgia Tech played some good teams last year. That's high-level experience out there on that left side that gives you a lot of stability. I think Caden Kittler's the guy that I'm kind of most intrigued by, because is he going to be just solid? Is he going to be like an above average, like, top of the league SEC center? Or is he a guy who was kind of middle of the pack in the Big 12 transferring over? Like, is it going to be maybe too much for him? But I feel really good about the left side, not great about the right side, and I'm kind of right in the middle there at center. And so I think it's kind of a perfect symmetry going on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at too. Just pretty steady with it. I will say, and we were never buying into the whole thing about like, oh, we've got 8-9 linemen, and we're going to play them all because we feel so great about everything. We called the cap on that one right away. But I will say that what I am buying into here is that they do feel really good about their top 6. Like, they feel really good about having a rover. So I am somewhat comforted by the idea of, let's say it doesn't work out with Kobe Branham, or he's a little overwhelmed out of the gates as a redshirt freshman or whatever. And we'll pull up the depth chart here when we get through the other 2 spots there on the offense, but they will just move Marion Harris inside. And I think they're very comfortable with his versatility, his flexibility, especially given the strides he's made in the weight room and on the scale there. And you have an immense talent like Shaq McCroy that you would then plug in and say, all right, let's see what happens here at right tackle. There's just, I think, better options to give a shot if things go awry a little bit early at a couple spots there, at least. And so that gives me a little bit of comfort, I would say. And people might be surprised. Like, in a way, we were trying to have our depth chart equal what we think the U of A is going to do on Monday, but also in ways we're doing it based on what we actually think it's going to be. And there's a stark difference between the two, and there'll be a difference in what the U of A releases and what Sam Pittman tells us 10 minutes after it happens on Monday. So be on the lookout for that. But they're also they seem to be infatuated with some of these freshmen along the offensive line. And that fascinates me because they went out specifically and got guys like Kavion Broussard and Marcus Dumerville to come in there and provide some veteran leadership, or some guys who have at least played college football before. And I almost feel like I'm hearing a lot less about them and a lot more about these freshmen. So it could be interesting to see how it all plays out. Hopefully they just stay healthy and they play the same 5 guys all year. And that tells you that, you know what, you probably did have an improved offensive line, but if they have to shake it up beyond one spot, it can get very interesting very quick.
Yeah, if we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times. When you're a big boy, when you're playing right by the ball there in the SEC, it's really not something you want to do as a young guy with no experience, as an 18, 19-year-old kid. So if all goes well, like you said, they'll be able to kind of lean on these top 6 guys that are older. I mean, even Shaq McCoy, he's a redshirt freshman, but he's as large as you can be. Like, physically, you feel like he's going to be able to at least can stand in for a few snaps there. You really don't want to have these freshmen being rushed into action. We've seen it happen a ton, but I am interested to see when they release the depth chart on Monday, how many of these true freshmen they have in there in that top 2, two in the 2 deep depth chart. I think Cash Courtney is like almost guaranteed to be the backup center. Now will he be the actual guy they go to if Caden Kittler goes down? Maybe not, but I think he's going to be listed at number 2 on the depth chart, either him or Brooks Edmondson there. And I think Blake Cherry's a guy that has clearly like risen up that depth chart pretty quickly. I mean, it's when you're getting reps with the 2s as a true freshman in fall camp, like, that's pretty impressive stuff. And I mean, hell, Fernando Carmona said if he came back next year, he'd have to battle with Blake Cherry for his job. So how am I not to take him seriously? And so I think it's clear they definitely love these young guys. At the same time, you don't want to put them into action and find out how much you really love them. So it'd be really nice if they could just kind of sit back, develop, kind of like Kobe Branham did last year. Kobe Branham didn't play a ton, but he was a guy that they really liked, started getting some reps with the 2s, played some snaps in some garbage time last year. Now, all of a sudden, he's starting at right guard. I think they have a couple candidates for something like that on this group now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really think that they do. So we'll see what that looks like. The future could potentially finally be bright on the offensive line if the transfer portal and the poachers stay away and Sam Pittman keeps his job. So we'll see what that looks like down the road. Let's move on to the tight end position. We can go through this one pretty quick. What I'll say about the tight end spot is I had him as like a buy low option if we're talking about stock, because I feel like it haven't really been talked about a ton. You're not hearing a whole bunch about him. It's kind of an unimposing room, but I do think that they've got some pieces there that I'm intrigued by. And maybe I haven't heard enough where I'm like, oh, baby, the stock is through the roof, man. I feel great about this, but I see the vision with Rohan Jones being a pass catching threat there at the tight end position. It's not lost on me that Jaden Platt is a guy who was very, very highly recruited, big, strong, physical, huge body that's played for Bobby Petrino before, hadn't put it together, but all of a sudden you're seeing in these scrimmages, ooh, a nice long catch here, a nice long catch there. You're hearing people bringing the name up and mention him a lot. Is the light bulb finally turned on for him? And then Andreas Poski, like, by default, he had to wind up playing a bunch of snaps for you last year. He's probably a better player today than he was before. And hey, he had more touchdown receptions than Andrew Armstrong. So what do you want from the man? My only hesitancy here of thinking that this could be a serviceable tight end room is I just remember how high we were last year on Luke Has, Ty Washington, Barkey's gun, that trio where we were hearing a lot of the same things. And you had the guy who had already broken out for you the year before, two guys. And you're thinking, man, this could really be the strength of this offense. And it just all went to hell. And so maybe I'm just a little bit scarred by that. I got PTSD from it. But still, I'm cautiously optimistic that these tight ends could be pretty decent for the Hogs.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned last year's group because I think they're very important to kind of relate and use the context for everything we know. And we've seen Bobby Petrino use tight ends before. Chris Gregg had some success under him. Of course, DJ Williams won the Mackey Award under him. We've seen Bobby use tight ends before, but that was a long time ago. Everything that we've been shown in the last 2 years would lead me to believe that tight end is not a position that this coaching staff and this team, this program is like, we got to have game-changing talents here. We got to have, we want to put an emphasis on it. Because when you're in the offseason, you're building your roster, you're out there spending money, you kind of put your money wherever you need it. Like they really needed to shore up their pass protection. They went out and got 2 legitimate starters from the portal from other schools to go kind of shore that up. They didn't do that at tight end. They went out and got guys that, hadn't really played before. A guy from D2, a guy from FCS, a guy in Jaden Platt that only had, about 25 snaps in his entire career. It almost seemed to me, because, we compare it to last year, we had Luke Has, a guy that, we talked about as a potential top 3-round draft pick. Varkey's Gums didn't have a great Arkansas career, but had a ton of experience through his career. Ty Washington had so many good moments before he eventually left the team. It was a group that was kind of an emphasis last year, and they really underachieved. They never really found a way to use all those skill sets. So I wonder if going into this offseason, they were kind of just like, let's kind of punt on the tight end room. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just mean like they didn't go out and say, hey, we have to go get some all-league guy that we have to pay $800,000 to come here. Like they kind of chose to just go with some guys, and I think they're just trusting their development. And for that reason, Curtis, I was very low on the tight end room back in the spring, going into this offseason. Hell, going into fall camp, we had not heard anything about Jaden Platt. I was not sure if this Rohan Jones thing was going to work out. I just was very low. So I am at that buy low spot as well, where I feel a lot better about the tight end room because, frankly, all it needed was just like a couple decent positive reports for me to be like, all right, they're improved. That's good. And we have been hearing that about Jaden Platt, who entering year 3 in the SEC, he's now kind of shown, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to take that step forward. I'm a playable option now. And I think they really do like the athleticism of Rohan Jones. And so we'll see what that looks like in terms of production. I like that Poschke is kind of the third man here. If Poschke had been running with the ones all during fall camp, I would have been concerned. If I'm being honest with you. That's not – we love Poschke. We love him. We've had him in our office before. We've broke bread with the man. I would have been a little concerned if he was just tight end one without a debate.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% there, man. It's and you talked about punting on the position, and I 100% understand what you're saying there. It brings me back to, I think it was Bobby's first press conference where it might've been Andrew Hutchinson who just flat out asked him about, trying to make a more concerted effort to getting the tight ends touches and having them being involved in the passing game. And he just very bluntly responded with, if they get open, they'll get the ball. You know what I mean? Not like, oh yeah, we're really going to be targeting these guys. And yeah, we want to be more dynamic from that standpoint. It was, run your routes, get open, we'll get you the ball. But very nonchalant in the answer there for sure. Speaking of getting open and getting the ball, the last spot here on the offense, wide receiver, I want you to go first, but I'll set the table real quick. Everybody already knows this. They didn't have anything back besides CJ Brown. A lot of turnover. a lot of guys that they went and got out of the portal. They went through an entire spring, and it seems like they didn't get a whole hell of a lot of answers because they went out and added more wide receivers in the spring portal. And now here we are at the end of fall camp. Based on how you felt post spring to now, where are you at with the wide receivers?
So I am not super high on Arkansas's wide receiver room, but for a similar kind of reason where it's like, I don't think that, they went out there and got a ton of guys where it was like very obvious, they were going to be set at 1, 2, 3, 4. They went out and got Omega Blake, which I think was a very, very important addition for them. A guy that had 800 yards at Charlotte, had 9 touchdowns, led the country in yards per reception. So he has that big play threat. I like that addition a lot. I think Raylan Sharp is not a guy that's going to blow anyone away. He's kind of an overachiever, and he doesn't look like an SEC football player, but he's an SEC football player, man. Like, I think he's a guy that's just going to be able to get open and kind of bring some stability to the room. Will this group have like that super high upside? I just don't really think so. But I also don't think this coaching staff built this roster with that. Like, I think they know that. Like, I don't think it's going to be a surprise that this wide receiver room is not going to have a bunch of third-round picks. Like, I think they kind of know what they have. The question is going to be, can these young guys, and I say young guys, that includes Monte Harrison because he's a sophomore or maybe a redshirt freshman. I don't know. I guess maybe a sophomore. He played in some games. Can him, C.J. Brown, Jalen Brown, can some of those guys take that next step and kind of round out this receiver room? I think in fall camp, the reason why I feel better about the room is because those guys have, maybe not emerged as these explosive playmakers, though they've all kind of made plays against the defense. But I think we just have a better understanding of who that hierarchy is. We haven't gotten to see Cam Shanks in action, but C.J. Brown has kind of settled in with the ones there. Jalen Brown, they've said a couple good things about, and so you have a 4th and 5th option there. I don't feel good about the room. Like, I think it's a below average SEC wide receiver room, but I feel better about it than I did in spring when it seemed like it was going to be a huge red flag and they weren't even hearing good things about Omega Blake. I was really worried there. I'm still worried because I think they have a pretty low ceiling, but they might have a I don't want to say high floor. They have an average floor, which is like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. And like if the offensive line is improved and Tailon's better and he's got more time back there and your rushing attack is potent, then all you really need is like a serviceable group of wide receivers to have a pretty damn good offense. And I'm hopeful that that's what they might have here. I will say, like, the pathway, once they put things together in portal season, the pathway, in my opinion, for Arkansas having a solid or an above average wide receiver room was Omega Blake being that guy and Courtney Crutchfield also being that guy. Those are two guys that they went and spent money on in the portal to go get. And it sounds like you split there, maybe, right? Like 1 for 2. And so whatever. And maybe somebody like Jalen Brown can step up and be that. Another really highly recruited guy where it just didn't pan out, didn't have the opportunities, bad, like whatever, for whatever reason just yet. Maybe he can realize it. We'll see. I'm with you. Like, I feel fine about Raylan Sharp and Cam Shanks and what they can bring to the table. But I also think there's kind of a ceiling there. I would say with Monte Harrison, I hope it's real. I do. Like you hear so many good things about him. Like, how many 55-yard touchdown receptions do you have to have against your defense before you actually start believing the defense might be a problem, or you start believing in him as being a potential playmaker? Because if he can step up and be that guy and be a consistent contributor, I'm not saying he has to be your number one, but somebody that you can throw the football to and can be productive in your 2 deep, then, maybe you're onto something. But outside of that, I still think Arkansas is relying on a lot of either unproven guys who need to prove themselves or guys who just haven't done it at this level that you need to see it translate first. And that makes me just a little bit uncertain about what's going to go on, but I am with you. I do feel better about it than I did going into camp.
And I want to make it clear that, like, when we say better about it than we did going into camp, coming out of spring, it was pretty evident this coaching staff was panicking. Like, they even in press conferences were like, yeah, I don't know. We don't know who's standing out at receiver. They went out and added guys. You don't go out and add guys in the summer if you love what you have at that position. And like you mentioned, there's just not a ton of production. Omega Blake, really solid year last year. Great. How will that translate to the SEC? We can figure that out. Same for Raylan Sharp, who had 500 yards. Outside of those guys, Jalen Brown, 8 receptions, 75 yards in his career. C.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 62 yards in his career. Monte Harrison, 2 receptions, 29 yards in his career. So, like, obviously, you're expecting more out of those guys. We'll see what they're able to give you, but there is a lot to prove for this wide receiver room, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And we even mentioned Antonio Jordan. I just thought we should say his name on this stream. That way
Say
people
his
get
name.
mad at us.
Antonio Jordan,
Yeah.
acknowledged.
Say it 3 times and he'll catch a pass this season. That's where
Hey, I bet he catches a pass against Alabama A&M.
He'll probably get a touchdown against them late, and then people are going to be like, oh,
yeah.
And hell, I hope he starts the next week. I'm all for it. Sign me up. Okay, so let me pull this up one quick. We'll just kind of recap real quick. And yeah, I think steady with the quarterbacks. We're feeling really good about the running backs, comparatively speaking. We just talked about the wide receivers. We're buying low on the tight ends. They might be a little bit better than advertised. We'll see. And then the offensive line, I think the jury's still going to be out there for a little while with them. Let's talk about the depth chart, the 2 deep here. And Andrew, I think some of these are just pretty self-explanatory, like quarterback, no controversy, running back, no controversy. Tight end, like we've got Rohan and we put Jaden Platt. It could very easily be Rohan and Posky, like whatever. I wanted to kind of fixate here real quick on offensive line and at wide receiver. I'll start with offensive line though. I think you've got all 5 starters pretty much nailed down here. If you look at right guard, you will see that we have a Marion Harris as the backup. Yes, we know that he's starting at right tackle, but I think we're both pretty confident that if a move needed to be made there, it would simply be shifting E inside and then inserting Shaq McCrory at right tackle.
Yeah, we could put Marcus Doomerville there to be nice if we want, and they will probably put him at one of those guard spots on the depth chart on Monday, but I'm with you 100%. Marion Harris very well could be the backup at left guard, left tackle. He wouldn't be the backup at center, but I think they might move Carmona to center, in which case he would move to left guard or something like that at all those spots. But I think we're on the same page there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then like you alluded to earlier, like we put the 2 freshmen on there and Blake Cherry and Cash Courtney. Doomerville exists. Yes, Edmondson exists, but they seem pretty high on these freshmen. So it made sense to keep them there. And I want to ask you real quick about wide receiver, because, we went with Omega Blake, Raylan Sharp, and CJ Brown as your 3 starters with Monty Harrison, Cam Shanks, and Jalen Brown behind them. I could see this not being the case when they run out there on the field. Like I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they started Omega Blake and Monty Harrison on the outside. And I wouldn't be surprised if they started CJ Brown in the slot, especially when Cam Shanks missed the first half of camp with an injury and Raylan Sharp has been out for a while. Late in camp. And then all of a sudden we hear, oh yeah, they're working CJ Brown and they're at the slot. He's kind of one of those versatile guys you could go either way with. So this is what we settled on, but I do think it's probably fairly subject to change.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that on the wide receivers, because CJ Brown, they moved him inside to the slot because of those injuries that you mentioned with Shanks, with Sharp. And that's right around the same time, Curtis, you'll remember that we started hearing very good things about CJ Brown, started seeing him listed at some of these scrimmage reports as catching touchdowns. And so I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I think there's a good chance, by the way, they're not always going to be in this, alignment, this formation. They're going to go 4 wide sometimes. They're going to go 5 wide. They might go 2 wide sometimes. I think if they go 4 wide, it's going to include Sharp and Brown on the inside and Harrison and Blake on the outside, like you mentioned. I'm with you there, and then we'll kind of see. We have Cam Shanks listed just kind of by default, but we'll see if when he gets healthy, how much he factors in to this whole just discussion here.
Yes. Yep. No doubt about it. We'll move on to the defense. But before we do that, got to tell you, today's episode of Inside Arkansas Football is presented by our friends at BetSaracen. It's Arkansas's #1 sports betting app. Sign up today with promo code BOOSTED and you will get a 100% profit boost to use on a bet of your choosing. The betting odds must be plus 5,000 or shorter, so plus 1,500, plus 100, whatever. Any type of bet, it's fair game here. Pre-match, in-play, single game parlays, any sport, any league, any event. This doesn't have to be Razorback specific. It could be anything that you want to bet on. This is for new players only, and there's a $25 max wager. Again, just use the code BOOSTED. That's BOOSTED for 100% profit boost on the app today. Get to winning big money this season by downloading BetSaracen on your iPhone or on your Android. You can also bet online at betsaracen.com. Okay, defense. Dealer's choice, Andrew, and you're the dealer. Where do we start?
We got to start at the bottom, Curtis. Okay. By the way, we list these stock reports here, and I guess we can go ahead and pull it up as we do this. We list these stock reports. This is not a ranking. The positions are just kind of in order by alignment, but like D tackles heading down we don't also believe D tackler is the best. You know what I mean? Like they're heading down defensive end, very much kind of hanging around there. Those are not the two best positions. Did want to point that out. But let's start in the middle, Curtis, where again, the situation just ain't good. We are not even 24 hours away from the announcement that Keyshawn Blackstock has been moved to defensive tackle from the backup right guard spot. Of course, that's why he's not listed on the depth chart at offense. You don't move a fifth-year senior who started on the offensive line for you last year to defensive tackle if you really love what you have going on there. And if you look at what Arkansas has going on at defensive tackle, Cam Ball might be the best player on the entire defensive line, maybe even in the front seven of the defense. Like we're very high on him, getting some preseason all-SEC type of accolades. He is kind of your stable, you can count on him guy. Next to him, you have Ian Gerfard, who has 191 snaps to his career, to his name for his entire career. Danny Saili, who has 66 snaps to his name for his entire career. David Oki, who is out right now, a transfer from Abilene Christian, has not been available. He's not going to be available for at least the first couple of games. So right now, we're kind of like, man, once Cam Ball, then you have those two guys, they'll kind of split for that other starting job. Who else is going to contribute here at defensive tackle? Insert Keyshawn Blackstock. Maybe that can give them some life, but it is a very, very volatile situation right now for Arkansas up front at the middle of this defensive line. Not what you want to be as you're about to face a very grueling SEC schedule. Yeah,
for sure, man. It scares me quite a bit that you're already feeling this before you played a game, and it only took one injury to the guy who was probably fourth in the pecking order for you to get there. And now you're just really like, good grief. Like hopefully for Arkansas, David Oki is only out for a game or two and then he's back. But then are we really going to breathe that big of a sigh of relief? Because the way I look at it, he was the guy who's been getting kind of consistently challenged by, Sam Pittman and others saying, hey, we need him to come on. We need him to figure it out. Like we need him to be better. That's why we brought him in here to contribute. So was he really in a position where they felt great about what he was bringing to the table anyway? And then we talk about health, and that's just one guy. You can't bring him back and then lose somebody else. Danny Saili, is he going to be a better, more impactful player than he's ever been? Hey, he worked his butt off throughout the course of the offseason. He lost 50 pounds. That's awesome. The work ethic is there. That's got him moving better, moving faster. Does that make him an SEC starting caliber defensive tackle? Well, we better hope so. Ian Gerfard, is he going to have he's just a big man. Are you going to be able to rely on him for 40 to 50 snaps? Because you don't have a whole lot behind him there. And then I think about Cam Ball, and like you said, absolutely love Cam Ball, man. I think he's a baller. I think he's a great ambassador for the university. I'm glad he's here. I wish he would never leave. But he missed the entire spring with an off-season elbow injury. And then he gets back, and he's missed time in camp. And did he participate in either scrimmage? I don't know that he did, with a shoulder AC injury. And so you're already banged up, and we really are going to be needing you to play like 60, 65 snaps a game here, because they're not going to be able to afford to take him off the field. Because regardless of how good we feel like Gerfard or Saili or whoever's going to be, I think there's a fairly significant drop-off after Cam Ball there. And then there's a fairly significant drop-off after the next two, because you're going to an offensive lineman. At the end of camp. The reason you're doing that is because you didn't have enough depth at that position coming into the year, and you're freshmen. It doesn't mean that they're bust or anything like that, but that's a tough spot to play in as a true freshman, and they might just not be there quite yet from a physical standpoint. And there's just nothing you can do about it. And the games haven't even started yet. And it does just make me uncomfortable about defensive tackle. Does that mean that the season is tanked? Does that mean they're going to give up 450 rushing yards a game? No, it doesn't. But they're going to have to be creative. They're probably going to have to do some 3-down stuff. They're probably going to have to, frankly, rely on their linebackers maybe more than they wanted to. And you're going to have a little bit of luck in the health and injury department if they're going to be able to piece this thing together throughout the course of the year. Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before we start getting that talk of Arkansas running a 3-man front, which we've seen them go to in several years past. Hell, they did it against Tennessee last year, and it saved the season. Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time, which is going to put even more pressure on Cam Ball, who you mentioned has gone through some injuries this fall and spring. I will also mention with Cam Ball, as much as, and we do love him,
he has 3 sacks in 4 seasons at Arkansas. So even Cam Ball, who is, again, great, going to be, improved this year, even he is going to have to like really up his game to an all new level. And he's the one guy we can count on. You're also going to need Ian Jaffrard to play twice the amount of snaps and really up his production because he does not currently have any production. Danny Saile, he's going to have to play a lot. So it's not like a completely useless situation, but you're pretty much needing every single guy in the room to play way above the level they've shown in their careers and capability that they've shown so far in their collegiate careers.
Are we buying I saw a lot of people in the chat today on Inside Arkansas Live that were doing a thing about, well, Keyshawn Blackstock, he's always been just really aggressive, and it's been his footwork and his technique or whatever that's really cost him. So he should just be able to go wreck shop at defensive tackle. Is that shortchanging the nuances of that position and everything that goes into, or do you think he's just a guy that they can plug in and let him go crazy?
I mean, I think it's probably short selling the technique that's going to be needed there. I would also say it's 9 days before the season, so it's like, and you got 2 games to kind of figure it out. But yeah, I don't know. I do think the fact that he's a 5th-year senior means you're gonna throw him into the fire, and so he'll kind of just adapt on the fly. And I do think like going from offense to defense is a little bit easier. You know what I mean? I think it'd be harder for someone that's playing tackle 9 days before the season to go to offensive tackle and have to learn that footwork and then learn the scheme and all that. I think maybe, he's an older guy that's got some experience in his career, but I don't know, Curtis. I think the fact that we're even having this conversation speaks to the level that we're concerned about the room.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, let's shift over to defensive end now, where I guess overall I would call myself steady with how I feel about this, but it's because I'm higher on certain guys and maybe lower on others that I was kind of counting on. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'll try my best to explain here. Quincy Rhodes, he was the guy, expected to be the guy. Like, nobody's going to fill Landon Jackson's shoes except, for the people who think that he sucks, which is a lot of people in our chat, which we're not going to get into that today, but he was going to need to be a better version of himself than he's ever been. And like, it's time for him to come along. Every SEC team, it feels like, has a future NFL guy coming off the edge. He's the only one that profiles with that type of potential, and it's potential that hasn't been realized yet. Remember, Landon Jackson and Nico Davier were the starters last year. Quincy had his moments, but this is a much larger role than he's ever been in. And I haven't heard anything bad about Quincy Rhodes. I haven't heard a whole lot good about Quincy. I haven't heard much at all about him throughout the course of a fall camp here, aside from just kind of attaching nobody's getting to the quarterback in these scrimmages. Nobody's getting pressure in these scrimmages. And so I don't know if that huge jump is going to be made or not. We just need to see it. And then we were also wondering, boy, we really hope Quincy Rhodes is going to be the sure thing. Maybe he will be. Who the hell is going to be opposite? Like, what's going on over here? So the flip side is I'm encouraged by what we've heard about Justice Boone coming on. I'm encouraged by what we've heard recently about Phillip Lee coming along. So you might have, between the two of them, options over there that aren't going to be big liabilities, because I legitimately didn't know what direction they were going to go here. I wish that was coupled with people saying, dude, they can't block Quincy Rhodes. Like, Corey Robinson's got nothing for him. We got this right tackle competition, and Quincy Rhodes is busting both of their asses. So like, we're still trying to figure out what's going on here. We haven't been getting that yet. Maybe he gets 4 sacks in the first game and we feel better about it, but I wish that we had a little bit more there.
I mean, you said it there. Like, they had 0 sacks in 2 scrimmages, and a lot of those reps were against the second team offense. We didn't even get those reports of, hey, yeah, these guys were getting after the quarterback, even when they were getting reps against the second team offense. Now, it doesn't seem like they got scored on a ton, but even still, they list out the tackles for loss and the sacks. They were with the threes. They were guys that were in the threes. And so it's very interesting. Quincy Rhodes, you're right. Like, looks the part. I mean, you talk about those guys that are future NFL guys. Quincy Rhodes looks like you want your defensive ends in the SEC to look. I think he's even gotten bigger, this offseason. We were seeing him at Baum, and we're just like, holy cow, this dude just looks like Hulk Hogan out there, man. It's crazy. He looks the part, and I really like the stride that he took from a true freshman that played in a couple games here and there to being a redshirt freshman who really contributed in a solid way for Arkansas, like got consistent snaps last year, played 233 snaps to be exact. Like that's a lot of quality experience. Now you're going to ask more of a workload out of him, and you're going to need more production. He had 1 sack, some you can build on. We need to see a little bit more. I felt great about him coming out of spring. I'm with you, just didn't really hear much. And I think Ken Talley, the Michigan State transfer, is another guy that we just have not heard anybody say his name good or bad. And so hard for me to feel good about the defensive ends given that those circumstances and just the lack of experience and production in the room overall. But Justice Boone has been that guy. We've been hearing, hey, yeah, he's really taking that step forward. And there's been a lot of transfers in recent years, Curtis, that have like come to campus and maybe their first couple weeks, you just don't hear anything about them. And then after a while, Jaden Hazelwood, that happened with him a little bit. I would say John Ridgeway is a guy like that, where it's like it took about 10 days before we started hearing, oh, hey, John Ridgeway, there's something going on here. And so I think Quincy or Justice Boone likely fits in that category. I think Phillip Lee might fit that same criteria because it was the first 2 weeks of fall camp and he wasn't here in the spring. We didn't hear anything about Phillip Lee. Now all of a sudden he's making plays. He might even be a good run defender. So I'm encouraged by that. Overall, I was very low on the ends coming into camp. I'm very low on the ends coming out of camp. So it's steady for me, but I don't feel worse about the situation like I do at defensive tackle, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I think that was well said. Tough conversations to have on the defensive line. And I know people are sick of hearing about it, but it's a problem spot. But I'm tired of talking about it too. Let's brighten up the mood a little bit here, Andrew, and talk about Arkansas's linebackers. Because if there is an area on the defense that I think we are unanimously excited about, what you have returning, the potential, some of the guys that you brought in, it's that linebacker room. I'll let you go first, but I will just throw in real quick. It's trending up for me, and I was already very high on them coming into this.
Yeah, same, man. I'm just really impressed. The two things that we've, said that these other positions like defensive line or defensive end, defensive tackle don't have experience and production. You can, we can talk about certain guys. They just don't have a ton of it. That's what Arkansas has in the linebacker room. I mean, Xavier Sorey played almost 800 snaps last year for Arkansas. That's a lot of experience. And he played at Georgia. Didn't grade out as well as I maybe thought he did on PFF, but his run defense grades were pretty good. His pass rush grades were pretty good. His coverage grade kind of took him down a little bit. Steven Dix was Arkansas's actually highest graded linebacker last year. He played about 600 snaps. He also had like 1,000 career snaps at Marshall before he came to Arkansas. So it's like those are two guys that have just played a lot of football, big physical guys, production, experience, veteran leadership, all of the above. That's what you want out of your linebackers. Arkansas's got two really good ones right there, and it doesn't stop. Bradley Shaw's a guy that, as a true freshman, you were hearing stuff about him in fall camp last year. We got to see a little bit of it on the field. It's done nothing but go up since then. We heard great things in the spring. We've heard great things in the fall. He's a true sophomore who now I feel like is a legitimate number 3 option, and he might not even have to be that because they brought in some transfer guys that they've been very impressed with, like Trent Whalen. I also think Tavion Wallace, that was a huge 4-star flip that Arkansas got on signing day, or maybe it wasn't a flip. It was they prevented him from being flipped. Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. But that was maybe the best guy in this past class, a 4-star guy who's you're adding to this room. That right there, that's about 5 to 6 guys at a position group where you really only need about 3 or 4. Arkansas on the defensive line, you need about 5 or 6 guys at end and 5 or 6 guys at tackle. And Arkansas's got about 1 or 2 at both. They've got like 5 or 6 linebackers. I wish some of these guys put that damn hand in the dirt, man.
I heard that, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. I heard Trent Whalen was just crushing skulls at the last scrimmage, by the way. So it sounds like they might be onto something there.
LB5, Curtis, literally.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I love that. I'm really excited about Bradley Shaw as well. And the only thing I'll throw in there, and listen, I'm the prime example here of what Sam Pittman was joking about the other day when he was like, now our media would make a mountain out of a molehill. I am not crazy about the Xavier Sorey hamstring thing. Because, man, the way that he runs and relies on those legs with his athleticism, you need that. Hamstrings are the things that can linger and be a pain in the butt for a while, literally. And also, it'd be one thing if he pulled one, you were setting him out. But the fact that it was enough to where they're like, hey, let's get this medication in there, and then we got to set you out for 5 days of practice, and then we can start working you back in. After he had already set for a while before they did that. I'm just a little bit cautious about that. Like there's part of me that hopes we don't even see him against Alabama A&M. People might freak out at the availability report comes or something, it's like, oh, what the hell? He's not playing. I would nurse that thing as much as I could because you have to have it. As deep as that room is, Xavier Story is a non-negotiable on this football team. And maybe it was just as simple as whatever medication he needed to get to numb it up, heal it up, cure it, heal it, whatever, gets in there, takes effect, and he's back at practice and rolling, and we won't hear about it again. But if that's a lingering thing that he has to deal with, that could be a little bit of a cheek in the armor in an otherwise really, really solid position group.
Yeah, if we don't see him till the Ole Miss game, it's not going to hurt my feelings. And for that same reason, like, you can afford to do it. Like, if Cam Ball had a hamstring injury, I'd be throwing every type of cortisone and penicillin or whatever. Like, I'd be throwing horse pills on that dude. I'd be giving him everything to play because you just can't really afford to not have him there. Not saying Arkansas can afford to not have Xavier Story ever, but it's like, you have guys that can, especially against Alabama A&M and even Arkansas State, you have guys that can fill in and play and get some valuable experience. Go ahead and let them do it. And then Ole Miss, let's have Xavier Story ready then. I don't care if he's ready week 1. He needs to be ready week 3. And if he gets to play that Arkansas State game, cool. But I definitely don't think they should be rushing him back as soon as possible.
Yeah, 100%. Let's be strategic about these last two here. We probably want to end on a good note. So let's go to corner now.
That is not a good note to end on.
No, it's not. I'm trending down a little bit on this one. There's just some unknowns. Here's what I'll say. Based on what we're hearing, it kind of feels like Jaheim Singletary and Kenai Walker could be the front runners to start at the beginning of the year. And maybe they won't. We'll see. But it's kind of been playing out that way. Jaheim Singletary, a guy who's a former 5-star, and I know you love that phrase, Andrew, but it hasn't necessarily worked out for him here at Arkansas, to the degree we hoped. He's been benched before, in and out of the lineup, in and out of getting snaps. And is this going to be the year where he just figures it out? Well, we'll see. Kenai Walker, hey, SEC experience, big corner. There are things that I like about him, but he did get benched midway through the year for a freshman at Oklahoma. So you wonder about that a little bit when you've got some other guys there like Selman Bridges, who's the highly talented recruit, coming in that you feel good about the potential there with him. Julian Neal, who you got out of the portal. Keyshawn Davila, who's the #1 junior college corner. I just kind of thought that we would have more of those guys emerging here as opposed to a little bit of status quo. And I'm just uneasy about that situation right now. And honestly, after hearing about all these explosive pass plays that the offense is getting in every one of these scrimmages, I'm kind of uncomfortable with corner at the moment. Will they be better than last year? God, I hope so. I mean, they probably will be, but does that mean that they're going to be good, that it's going to be a strength? And, they're talking all about, oh yeah, we're going to be able to play more man coverage. Well, we hear that every year and you don't do it. We're going to be able to stay in front of the football, deny the football. We hear that every year and then you don't do it. Is it more of that talk, or are they going to actually be able to have that? I think it's going to take me a while. I'm kind of in believe it to see it, or see it to believe it, mode with these corners.
Yeah, you touched on a really good point there at the end. That like sometimes it's set up to where you've kind of got your veterans, you've got your like C+ guys, and you kind of want your young guys to go in there and take over that job. And you want your young guys like a Quincy Rhodes to kind of start taking over, which, by the way, when Nico Davier hit the portal, I think that was maybe part of it is, maybe it was kind of, he felt the storm coming of, hey, Quincy Rhodes, this young guy that's going to take over my job. Let me go ahead and get out of here. Like, that's a real thing that happens at Arkansas and everywhere else. I feel like, and I view the cornerback situation the same as you, of like, not that Kenai Walker's horrible, not that Jaheim Singletary is horrible, although Jaheim Singletary, I believe he was the lowest graded cornerback in the SEC last year. That overall grade is a 46.9 per PFF. That is a 42.9 coverage grade. And he is a guy that got benched at Arkansas. I mean, it happened last year. We watched it happen. He got benched for Jalen Braxton a couple years ago. Like, it's a thing that happens. I think it was kind of set up for both of these guys to be replaced by a Selman Bridges, by a Keyshawn Davila, hell, maybe even by a Julian Neal, who came over from Fresno State. He made a quick stop at Stanford and then decided Stanford wasn't for him. And so he comes to Arkansas. I think that people were kind of hoping those guys would rise up, and it just doesn't seem like that happened. And I think that's very concerning. You mentioned Kenai Walker, how he kind of, He's big, has some experience, looks the part. He's another guy that has been a victim of this before. Again, Singletary's been benched in each of the last 2 seasons at Arkansas. Walker got benched at Oklahoma last year. So his sophomore year, he had a 69.3 overall grade and a 69.7 coverage grade. That's actually pretty solidly above average. He comes back as a junior and has a 59.2 overall grade and a 56.4 coverage grade. That's how you get replaced. And so again, can either of those guys kind of reverse course on their career and take those strides as older guys? Sure. Like we'll absolutely give them that chance. But I think Hog fans coming into the year, if you had told them that those two guys were going to be the starting corners, I don't think they would have been like, hell yeah, that's awesome. And it seems like that's where we're at.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of there with you. I'm really hoping that Selman Bridges winds up being a guy there for him. And the thing that gives me pause is that he was running with the ones so much during spring and then early in camp, and then that's kind of faded. And who knows, like we have, maybe he's just been out for a little bit or something, who knows, or maybe he's still playing catch up a little bit as a youngster there. We'll see what it winds up looking like. They've got 2 games. They've got 1 game at least to really be able to tinker a little bit. I'm sure all those guys are going to get plenty of snaps, plenty of reps, and more of an evaluation. We'll see what it winds up looking like. I will guess that it's not going to be a situation where you have decided on your 2 starters and it's just them. There's probably going to be some rotation with the corners quite a bit anyway, but very much so, I think, with the group that they have going in here early in the season.
I think the epiphany I've had recently, Curtis, is because sometimes we talk about secondary and we just lump it all together. And I think Arkansas secondary last year struggled. And so people are like, hey, they're going to be better in the secondary, right? And I always say kind of, yeah, they should be. I mean, they're replacing a lot of transfers with transfers. I think the difference at safety and difference at corner is just way bigger than we realized coming into fall camp. And I think that's what we've kind of learned is like safety. I kind of like everything I'm hearing. I like the hierarchy they have, and I like the competition they have. Hell, there's going to be guys that I feel are good football players that are going to be backups at safety for Arkansas this year, whether that's Miguel Mitchell, whether that's Scandrett, who's had a really productive career at the D1 level, like whether that's Caleb Wooden, who's been a starter in the SEC. Like there's going to be some of those guys that are going to be backups at corner. It just really isn't that. And so I think we've kind of learned in fall camp, let's separate it. When we're talking secondary, we can't lump it all together. Corner is its own thing, and they have their own set of issues. Safety, it's kind of different. And so that's like a kind of a perfect segue into our final position group, because we got to end on a good note, right?
Yeah, no, we absolutely do. It's kind of funny, by the way, you were talking at the beginning of the show about, let's get on into the fall where it gets dark outside at 5 o'clock and now everybody's heating you up because the sunlight's coming in. Timing with these things. We have windows, people,
And also, this is the first time we've ever done a stream at this specific time of this time of year. You live and you learn, I should have my blinds are right here. I had like the little slide ones. Should have just slid it up before I started the show.
You look great, man. You're glowing. Don't let anybody get to you. The safety position. Yeah, you mentioned it. I feel better about this spot too. Here's the deal. We've heard a lot of good things about Miguel Mitchell, student of the game, future coach, all these things. We've heard a lot of good things about Larry Worth. He's figured it out. Athletic freak, making plays. The truth of the matter is here, yeah, I feel good about that, but it's kind of the same thing as some other positions. This is different than Xavier Sori and Steven Dix returning for you.
A little bit.
You know what I'm saying? Like these are returners, and you can call them returning starters because I think they both wound up starting some games there for you. But to me, Sori and Dix they're proven. I'm not worried about them. I don't have any questions left with those guys. I still do with Worth and Miguel Mitchell. But I like what I'm hearing about them. I like that they're in year 2 here with Travis Williams and that defense. And I also am with you where I like the depth there because I Caleb Wooden, I think he's a pretty good football. I think he's a star. I think he's a pretty good football player. Contavious Scandrett, when they got him out of the portal, I thought, man, this guy might wind up being pretty good for him. I mean, he's an up transfer and everything, so it's got to translate up to the SEC, but pretty good football player. I like Jordan Young out of Cincinnati, who's going to be playing.
By the way, should we have lumped nickel in with corner?
Maybe so, and that makes it nicer to them. Yeah. Jordan Young, good football player. We can agree with that. But I am more optimistic about the safety position. I still have some questions, that I need to see answered on game days, but I think they'll be okay back there.
Yeah, I think that you touched on it there. The difference between Sori and Dix, who were pretty much your everyday, every week linebackers, Larry Worth kind of emerged in the last 6 or 7 games and was kind of a starter by the end of the year. Miguel Mitchell only played in 4 games. They purposely did that to preserve his red shirt, and they liked what they saw, but he's not a guy that has 700 snaps of SEC starting experience coming back or anything like that. So I think coming into fall camp, it was very much a question for me. Could those guys fend off someone like Caleb Wooden, Caleb Wooden has like 800 snaps in the SEC for his career, was a starter as a sophomore, lost his job a little bit last year down the stretch. Scandrick, you want to know something about Quintavious Scandrick, Curtis? Here his 3 years, he's been a 3-year starter at Eastern Michigan. Here are his PFF grades for those 3 years: 73.5, 73.9, 72.8.
I'm in.
The guy is just he has a very high floor and a very that's the ceiling. It's like that's who he is. And so listen, the fact that Miguel Mitchell and Larry Worth have been able to kind of fend off some of these guys and they've been running the majority of the reps of the ones is kind of like, one, you give them some benefit of the doubt, but I feel like it just kind of there's actual competition. For as much as we say our iron sharpens iron, Curtis, it's never really that way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Kobe Branham and Keyshawn Blackstock was iron sharpening iron. I think they had a guy that they wanted to win the job. The guy they wanted to win the job won. I think in safety, I don't think they really went in being like, hey, we got to start this guy. We got to start this guy. I think you just have 5 or 6 guys that are going to kind of battle. And by the way, it could end up being Larry Worth at nickel. It could be Jordan Young at nickel. It could be Larry Worth at safety. Could be Scandrick at safety. Could be, there's going to be some mixing and matching. Will they have a third safety? Will they maybe have just like will they do 2 nickels? Like, what's it going to look like? I don't know. But they have about 5 or 6 guys there, all of which have some experience under their belt and all of which have shown some capabilities. Is it the most star-studded group? Not at all. I mean, I don't even know if there's a guy. I don't even know if there's an NFL player in this group, but it's just a lot of older veteran guys who I think if you're counting on this defense to overachieve, you're going to count on some of these guys to kind of lead that charge. And so I don't know if I'm like stunned and impressed with the group, but I do feel better about the group after just hearing some of the things we've heard throughout fall camp.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I'm glad you brought that up about maybe they got a third safety. Maybe they have this, maybe they have that, because we have our defensive depth chart here. And listen, they're multiple. Have you heard that before in a camp? They might be out there in some 3-3-5. They might be out there in some 3-2-6. There's a million different things they can do. Travis Williams was sitting up there talking about pennies and hogs and nickels and every coin that you could imagine the other day. They're going to be doing some different things. So these formations are all subject to change. We get it, is what it is. Anything striking to you or that you want to go through here on this depth chart, or you feel like we covered it pretty well?
I mean, I guess the thing I would say is, and we kind of touched on it, at corner, these are not very definitive 1s and 2s here. Like, it's not a huge line between Singletary and Bridges. In fact, I think there's a good chance if I could place money on SARACEN on Selman Bridges to wind up being the starter, I might do it. And I think the coaching staff would love for that to be the case. I think it's the same with Worth and Scandrick. I think both those guys are going to play. I think Mitchell and Wooden, both of those guys are going to play. Jordan Young, I think, is probably, weirdly enough, maybe the most safe position there in the secondary.
I like him a lot. Yeah.
Just because he has a lot of experience, and we didn't get to see him in the spring, so we didn't get to really hear how awesome he was. And now we're finally starting to get him settled. And I think linebacker, there's a couple guys you could even make a case for being on this list, like an Andrew Harris, or maybe like a Tavion Wallace. But I think, like, again, this is kind of the situation here, and maybe David Oki is going to end up being that Keyshawn Blackstock spot.
Yeah, we had Oki on here, and we changed it because he's hurt. So like he's not going to play in the first game. And we thought about this for a minute, and we were like, you know what? We're going to put Keyshawn Blackstock here to illustrate the lack of depth that you do have there. Because if we're not putting him here, then we're putting one of those freshmen there. And I think it's pretty clear that they're not comfortable with the prospects of that, which is why they've moved Blackstock over. So, it is what it is. Yeah, go ahead.
If I could do something, I want to just circle that little DN spot there that has Quincy Rhodes and Charlie Collins. I want to put a circle on it. I want to highlight it. I want to put a star next to it. I want to put like arrows pointing towards it. That position, those 2 young men, both high school guys from the state of Arkansas, both have been in the program their entire careers. Those guys have to, I want to challenge them and kick them in the rear, and kind of like those guys are the dudes that really, really need to step up. Just seeing their names grouped together kind of just made me have that. I'm like, dude, these dudes, like those are the guys. If I could challenge anyone on this defense to step up and be a monster, it would be those 2 young men.
I like that. I like that a lot. I 100% agree with you on that one. Okay, folks, we're going to get to your chats and then we'll wrap up here. But real quick, got to tell you about our friends over at Walter Christmas Lighting of Arkansas. Yeah, I know. Oh, you're talking about Christmas lights in the middle of August. Listen, we get it. First of all, it's never too early. Second of all, they do Halloween too. We're getting closer and closer. If you've walked in Target, you've seen all the Halloween stuff out there. You see the pumpkin spice everywhere. 'Tis the season almost. We're there. A lot of you love the idea of getting into the holiday spirit, decorating all these things. Maybe you don't have the resources. Maybe you don't have the time because you're busy. Luckily for you, Walter Christmas Lighting has you covered this fall and winter. If you're in Northwest Arkansas or the River Valley, have Walter Christmas Lighting install and set up your house for professional Halloween and Christmas lighting like you've never seen before. They make it really easy on you. All the materials are provided. Any color, any pattern that you want. They come and install the lights. They provide the maintenance throughout the holiday season. They also come and take it all down in January. Also, if you sign up for their Halloween lights, they'll hook you up with the Christmas lights for 50% off. That's a pretty good deal. Just text our guy Brett for a free estimate at 479-459-1380. That's 479-459-1380. You can also check out their website at walterchristmaslighting.com or like them on Facebook by scanning the QR code right there on the bottom of your screen. It's Walter Christmas Lighting of Arkansas, your local holiday lighting experts. Sometimes I just want to keep that thing up there, like just doing the rest of the show because it's cool. Now, if you some people get a little bit freaked out by the bright lights and everything like that, but I like it. It's exciting to me. So
I just like when our faces are not on the camera.
Me too. Yeah. I really enjoy that when we're doing Inside Arkansas Live and John is doing the ad reads because I can just stretch out for a second, get a drink, maybe get a little, got my trusty goldfish beside me. Sometimes I can get a bite here and there.
You could do stuff like that too.
Yeah. What happened? Wow, this is crazy. You look so much different.
You just see my face now. How about that?
Okay. Let's get into the chat and see what you guys got going on. We got a couple super chats, so we'll get to those. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, hanging out with us today. Hayden Ulmer, the man, the myth, the legend. He says, imagine how cool it would be to have Big Cat on when Gruden and Coach O are here next year. Somehow I knew that we were going to wind up talking about this on this live stream.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we didn't talk about it more. Honestly, maybe we would have read this earlier, but we appreciate you, Hayden. And yeah, that will be fun to have all the boys together.
It'll be wide. It would be huge for the brand. If John Gruden and or Ed Orgeron are on the staff at Arkansas at any point, they will be friends of the show.
Easily. Yeah.
And they also won't change their typical dialect and terminology if we use their voice in an intro.
Yeah,
like if Coach O,
they won't be offended by that at all.
Yeah, if Coach O said things of that nature 1,000 times, or we just did the intro with him, he wouldn't get mad and stop doing that. He is who he is.
I'm sure that'd be great.
Chris Sullivan 567, we appreciate you, brother. He says, serious question, could Blackstock be better at defensive tackle than offensive line? I believe he struggled at guard last year, but I don't know. Yeah, he wasn't very good on the offensive line last year. He was at he struggled mightily there at right tackle. They moved him inside. They tried that a little bit. Does that mean he will be better at defensive tackle? I don't know. He's a big, strong dude. And so he's got that going for him. And I agree with you 100%, Andrew, that it's easier to go from the O-line to the D-line than it is from the D-line to the O-line. I wonder what it's going to look like with, is he going to be the guy that gets burned on some of the cadences? Is he going to be jumping off sides? What is that adjustment going to be like for him? How well is he going to be able to pick up on the twists and the stunts and understanding of the gaps and everything like that? It's different. It's a lot to take in. It's not as simple as, hey, go in there, play football. Like you have specific assignments on every play that you got to, So I don't know. And the truth that he's probably going to play some snaps there.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to go. We'll see.
This is the same kind of line of thinking that that leads people to believe that their backup quarterback is better than their quarterback, where they're like, I mean, the quarterback's really struggling. The backup should be playing, right? And it's like, you're assuming that the backup, who is the backup for a reason, is better than the guy, and it's just been hidden from everybody. So I say all that to say, just because Tailon Green might piss you off, that doesn't make Malachi Singleton good at football, because it is very much true. Keyshawn Blackstock struggled at O-line last year. I don't think that him struggling on O-line means he's going to be good on the defensive. Like I just think that's a really hard leap to make. Could he be better than he was there? Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. He was right above a Marion Harris as one of the worst graded players in the entire SEC. So maybe he's a little bit better than that. But I think it's going to be tough to sell me on that. And I just wish they weren't starting this experiment right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, if you got to camp or whatever, and like you had like somebody got injured in summer practices, and you're like, okay, we need to make this move, and now he's like a month into it or something like that, then maybe you could talk me into it a little bit more. But yeah, having to make the panic move with 10 days before the game or something, it's going to be tough. It is. Phil, our man, hope you're doing well, buddy. He says, I'm excited for any healthy Tailon Green play. Going to keep you on the edge of your seats if he's able to go all year. Yeah, it's, it hasn't been talked about enough how injured he was the second half of the season. No, it's been talked about a lot, but it's true, man. He was banged up and he was still making plays out there, but early season before the dirty hit against Tennessee, Tailon Green, he was a different animal, man, with those legs at least. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, I'm going to quote Sam Pittman on this one. We got Tailon Green. We got a chance to win. And Phil's right. He does kind of bring that, just like he makes you believe that something could happen just with his athleticism. So I'm all for that.
Exactly. I like that. We got basketball questions here. Dylan says, is it confirmed Paolo and Elmer are on campus? Thought they would both be here on the 18th. I'm fairly certain that Paolo's here. I think Elmer gets here this weekend, but they're all going to be here soon, and the full team should be on campus as they pick up workouts here, and then certainly by the time they start official practices here. But yeah, classes started on Monday, but you have like a 2-week like rover period to get in and get enrolled and everything like that before it becomes an issue. So nothing to worry about there. The big fellas will arrive. In fact, Chuck Martin on Instagram was sharing a bunch of Paolo stuff on IG the other day. So Chuck Martin's a big Instagram guy. I don't know if you guys know that or not. This is interesting from Heartbroken Hog. He says, I still believe Braylon leads the team in rushing. We've seen fall camp stars before. I'll put my faith in the 4-star talent of Braylon.
The only reason I can't get behind this is because Mike Washington is also the older, more experienced, more proven player. You know what I mean? Like if we came into fall camp and it was like, hey, this freshman running back, he is outperforming Braylon Russell, I could see why you'd be like, oh, hey, I don't know if I'm really willing to go there. Mike Washington, by all indications, is the older, more stable, more reliable, more experienced, more proven guy already. So Braylon, like, honestly, I don't know. And I just don't think Braylon is necessarily the standard for reliability. You know what I mean? As like somebody you can sure count on.
That's where you lose me. The 4-star talent and everything, that's great. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of hurt during the spring, and it's been a little bit, it's been up and down for him. And like, if you don't want to believe the fall camp stars thing or whatever, Heartbroken Hog, and you're an optimistic guy, so I'll let you choose which way you want to go. But at this point, with everything we've seen, everything we've heard, all the stats from the scrimmages and everything, you kind of either need to believe that Mike Washington is really good at football or that the defense is really bad at football.
Yeah. Like, or that you need to be concerned about Braylon, because if that's the case, if you think Mike Washington sucks, then it's like, then Braylon really isn't good then.
Right, yeah, because it's not like he's had just this standout camp himself. He was better in the second scrimmage.
Yeah. And I mean, they're going to release the depth chart Monday, and Braylon Russell is not going to be RB1. Like that, like, I understand the myth of like, oh, hey, can we really buy fall camp? I do buy that Mike Washington's going to be the go-to guy, at least to start the season.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And I see him, the follow-up here. Mike Washington has done nothing in 4 years of actual real games. It's just he has the ability to be an SEC star. Fall camp isn't meaningless, but it ain't gospel either. My retort would be like, what has Braylon Russell done that makes you think he's going to be the star? Pull his hamstring on a big run against the worst defense in history against Mississippi State. Carry it 28 times for 50 yards against Texas Tech in the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah.
He had his moments there, and I think there's potential there for a really good running back. But I would just ask that you keep your evaluations, similar between these two guys here. You can't use one set of criteria to bring one guy down and not use it for the other guy when the indictment's there for him as well. Maybe they'll just have two good running backs, which I would be okay with. Hog fan 40 ounce says put Blackstock at fullback. It's very disrespectful to Maddox Lassiter, in my opinion. But,
Yeah, we should have thrown him on the depth chart. Damn.
yeah, I mean, yeah, what the heck? Let's see. Oh, it's okay. So Dylan Henson says, sadly, Arkansas will be lucky to have 2 draft picks this year. Here's what I will say, and Andrew, I'll let you ponder on this for a second. I do think that that's one of the most significant differences between Arkansas and its peers. Because when we talk about, man, Arkansas is going to be, maybe they're better than expected. Maybe some of these other teams are worse than people are hyping them up to be and everything like that. When it comes to top end talent like this, NFL draft picks, future pros, there is a pretty sizable gap between Arkansas and a lot of the teams that they're playing. So I don't know how many draft picks they're going to have. Hopefully you've done the math in your head by now, Andrew, but
I haven't, but I also haven't really thought about it.
Star power wise, Tailon, maybe. Like
yeah, he might get drafted. Cam Ball could get drafted. I think Corey Robinson might be one of their best bets to get drafted potentially.
Yeah, Corey's good for it.
But to this point though, Dylan, and I'm not even gonna like try and do the math on it, but I think that's why it's like, even if you think Arkansas is gonna be better than people think, or you think, hey, they can surprise the people, they're gonna be above. I think the like ceiling is like 8-4. Like I just don't think there's a ceiling like any way you can talk. I mean, I know people have, but like realistically, just looking at it on paper, like you just don't see teams with 0 NFL players go 10-2 or 9-3, especially in the SEC.
Yeah. I think I'm with you there. The student section wants to know if Nick Pringle could replace Sorey. Nick Pringle, he might have to replace like one of the defensive ends or something. He kind of looks the part there. Maybe it's more of a, who looks like a linebacker in that basketball team?
On the basketball team? Carter, but he's a little tall.
Yeah, he's too tall, but he's like 225. DJ is not heavy enough, but he kind of fits the.
DJ could be like a box safety.
Yeah. I don't know if they've got a really good option there. I don't want to spend too much time on it. That's silly, but Cletus says big shoes to fill after Hudson Clark left, and Cletus is not one to joke. He spits facts, so
this is true.
He said, I expect some freshmen to get some reps like Overton and Pringle.
I think this is at corner. And I will just say this, because it's not out of the question. If this happens, that means they are like basically punting. That probably means they fired Pittman midseason. And I'm not even saying that like not even saying these players aren't going to be good. It's just like if they rush those guys into action, that means they really have gone through their options. They've gone through Julian Neal. They've gone through Kanai Walker. They've gone through Singletary. And all these guys stunk. If those guys are getting PT, that probably means something bad happened.
Yeah, no, you're probably right about that. I think we got some answers here to the NFL draft question. Like Cletus says, Sorey, which he could have gone last year and he didn't. And I don't know, was he on many draft boards? I don't
remember him being on them, but
like
going into the year. And I don't know. I mean, if he has a huge year, of course he could get drafted.
Maybe so. Quincy Rhodes, again, like he looks the part, but
and he is technically draft eligible now.
So
I think Quincy will get drafted next year.
Yeah, maybe so. Campbell, I'd agree. Tailon, I would probably agree. I mean, if Omega Blake has a crazy year, sure.
Yeah, I don't hate Omega Blake as a potential draft pick. But by the way, all of these guys, like Tailon maybe is the one guy that you could talk yourself into getting drafted in the top 3 or 4 rounds because of how many teams draft quarterbacks. But like a lot of these guys are like 6th, 7th round, fringe guys anyway. So it's like the idea that they're going to have like 5 or 6 drafted, it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then finally, Bill says, don't be like the Griswolds, call Walter.
Love that.
That's pretty good. All right, man. Anything else you want to get to before we get out of here? Yeah, honestly, I think we've done a pretty good job we were going to try to stay under an hour. We always say that, but we meant it this time. That did change because we knew we had the SEC schedule stuff to talk about. And that was going to add to it. I feel like an hour and a half is pretty solid work. Our second 90-minute show of the day.
Yeah, considering that we speak for over an hour and a half every day, and we're going to do it tomorrow, and we have stuff coming out Saturday, and teaser, we've got some other preseason preview stuff, like maybe some stat projection stuff coming in the next week. And so we've got plenty of meat left on the bone, despite the fact that we are eating a lot of meat, I guess is how that.
That was crazy. I can't think of a better way
Because
to
when we say meat left on the bone, I never really thought about what that means. I guess that means we're eating the meat.
Well, those were Andrew's final thoughts, and I can't do any better than that. So we're going to get out of here. But seriously, appreciate everybody for hanging out with us here on this Thursday night. Get used to these Thursday night streams. We're going to be doing them probably a little bit later in the evenings moving forward, but going to be a regular occurrence for us. And tap in where you need to get tapped in if you're not tapped in yet. And we plug the Inside Arkansas YouTube channel all the time. We'd love for you to be there. If you're not subscribed, just go ahead and do that. It doesn't change anything for you. It's free for you, but it does help us, and we would appreciate it. And the best way to keep up with everything we got going on is just to hit that notification bell. That way you're notified anytime that we go live with things like this. And then also, we're trying to get this podcast version of Inside Arkansas Football up and running as well. So find us wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, where you download the books. We're there. We're all over the place. You can find us, but appreciate you guys. And, you'll be seeing a lot of us moving forward. But for Andrew Ellis, been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas, and we'll see you when we see you. Everybody have a good night.